Welcome to Not Strong.
This is a podcast for men about real challenges and real growth.
Life can hit hard. What do you do when the things you've always relied upon quit working?
When the way you've always handled things just isn't enough.
When your physical, mental, and spiritual strength are put to the test?
Do you push through, hold on even tighter?
Or have you learned how to surrender? And what does that look like?
We're here to explore the human spirit with you and share what it takes to press forward through life's greatest challenges.
To tap into something bigger than ourselves and live a healthier, happier, more fulfilling life.
Join us on the Not Strong journey.
Welcome to Not Strong. I'm Kurtis Loftus.
I'm Tim Hamby.
Not Strong, Empowering the Human Spirit. And we are on episode 7.
That's awesome. I can't believe we got this far.
Well, we're learning as we go. We corrected some mic stuff, some audio stuff. Hopefully we sound okay. We were echoing the last time.
Yeah, a little bit.
Couple things. We prayed last time. What'd you think of that?
Anytime's a good time for prayer.
There it is. We're going to do a quick one again. So thank you, Lord Jesus, for this chance to get together and speak about our spirit, the human spirit. We know that all things are possible through you. Today's show, hopefully it reaches people and inspires them, lifts them up, and brings them some more understanding about who we are and what we find, especially today, really cool about the surf community and surfing. And that's what we're going to talk about. So
Yeah, it'd be fun.
So in your name, here we go.
All right.
So the surf spirit.
Yeah.
Surfer spirit.
Yeah.
I think that's what we'll call it.
All right. What is that?
What is it? Yeah. And how did it even come about? What drew us into the sport of surfing? So let's kick it off because I have a bunch of questions for you, Tim, about surfing.
All right.
And this little thing behind us, Not Strong symbol.
Yeah, obviously it's important to you, and as it is to me, and kind of became the whole theme of this podcast, built around it.
Yeah, it's my life for 50 years has been surfing has been in my life.
One of the awesome things about the sport is you can do it for a long time.
That was what was really cool about it as a kid. I actually envisioned myself doing it until I couldn't walk.
I'm the same way, and I've had friends that were passionate about it. Some of my best buddies, surfing buddies, when I was young, and some of them have fallen off. Through different reasons. Work, physical conditions, things like that. But I was just one of those. I knew I was never going to quit. And I even talked to a couple guys that were good friends that would surf with me and had kind of fallen away. And we had conversations about it. And I asked them, why? Why'd you step away from it? Or why is it less important to you now? And a couple of them, one guy in particular I'm thinking of, and he's a couple years older than me. And he said, he goes, you'll see when you get there, when got a wife and kids and job, and it'll become less important. And I was just thinking,
that's crazy. Yeah, that is crazy talk. You don't understand.
Yeah,
and maybe that whole only a surfer knows the feeling is true because as a surfer, I feel like spiritually. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
This is something deeper than just, I've got a sport I do.
Yeah.
I love doing tennis, and not to diminish any of those sports. Mm-hmm. I love doing, pickleball or whatever. Name the sport. Running is one of those sports. I love doing that, but it's still not surfing.
Yeah, no. And
running may get me to some of those state of mind, physical, emotional places. But surfing,
it's the same way, with me, and it's that connection with the ocean, and in particular,
Mother Nature. Ooh.
Yeah, and like you say, running, will get you closer to that place, and it's funny, like with running, I never have run on the pavement. I don't
really.
I don't street run.
You.
I don't.
Good for you.
I will walk. Different places, but I do not run on the. I only run on the beach, and it's because of that I'm there for another reason.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah. Have you ever run? This is now, see how we go down these little rabbit holes. Have you ever run on the beach barefoot?
I have tried that once or twice, and different people have suggested that to me and stuff. But I'm just always worried about catching glass, catching shell, and these days with the neuropathy in my feet from the cancer, I probably definitely wouldn't do that. It's funny. I was just saying the other day to Gretchen, because of illness last year and hadn't been surfing in so long. So I've been, but I still would go try and run and do all that stuff this year. And so I'm getting this tan line around my.
You have a tan.
Yeah, I get dark, and I got this tan line around my ankles, and my feet are stark white. And I said, "Oh my God, I can't go to the beach. I can't go surfing, and I definitely can't break out a GoPro or anything because it's going to look at my feet." And
oh, Tim, laughing. Come on, Tim.
So, but I got to get back actually in the water, and
we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to some film too. We're going to get our GoPros down there, both of us, and get in the ocean and do some filming. So let's do talk surf because there's so many questions I have for you. And even though, we're learning a lot about each other, which is great. I mean, we're hanging out, we're enjoying the conversations and getting into these histories that they're so similar. It's blowing our minds. But with surfing, I've got the first question for you because I've got them.
Okay.
You started when? These are simple ones.
I started when I was 15.
I started when I was 13.
Okay.
St. Augustine, Florida. Where'd you start?
I was living in Orange Park, and probably the first place where I, learned to surf was Anastasia. So then spent a lot of time at Crossroads, Michler's, the pier. I was all over. My dad had a place that was right, I think 7th Avenue South, right where the old pier used to be. I mean, literally at the foot of it. And then he ended up moving to Neptune Beach down to Margaret Street. Spent a lot of time surfing there. But yeah, all those breaks. And Volano, spent a lot of time.
Well, don't go. No, we're going to stay with that kid. I want to explore that. When I was, and I said this in an earlier podcast, when I was about 11 to 12, we moved to St. Augustine. By 13, and we're on St. Augustine Beach, Anastasia Island, right? And so I'm a mile from the pier, less than a mile from the pier, right? And so I'm in a neighborhood that has surfers, but we're all kids. And I'm brand new to this whole Florida sort of, what is the ocean? What does it look like? How scary is it? It's like all that stuff. And, but my parents divorced. And really, even before that, I was already surfing, but just barely. I was 14 when my parents divorced. 13 is probably when I first started testing it and doing that without anyone really even knowing. I don't think my mom knew I was becoming a surfer. My dad certainly didn't. And I was just like, I found the ocean and clumsy. No one's showing me anything. I'm trying to watch people. I don't have friends. There's a kid in the neighborhood that's kind of a gawky guy, and he decides we're both we're losers. All right, I'm just going to say it. But we hang out together, and we get surfboards together, kind of really beat up old surfboards, and we go down to the beach together. Yeah. His name was Boo. Boo, that was his name. Boo. Boo.
Funny. One of the first guys I went out with was named Bo.
Oh, that's stupid. So Boo and I would go down to the ocean, 16th Street, down to the beach, right there by the pier, and just flounder around at 13. Not at all that good at it, and I'm surprised I never drowned because there's no one showing me. And I'll stop there because I've got the first wave question coming up. So that experience for you, first kind of times paddling out in the ocean, getting used to white water hitting you, that whole, you remember that still to this day?
Yeah. The first time that I went was actually I was actually skipping school with
Very first time, like never even.
very first time.
Skip
Yeah,
school.
some friends. I had a couple friends who were older, a couple of friends who were younger, but there was, I think, 5 or 6 of us who they basically kidnapped me at the bus stop. They had an extra board, and we went down to Anastasia Beach. They had a van called the Jolly Roger, and it had pirate stuff on the outside of it. I mean, it was full on Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And anyway, we all ended up going down there, and they took me out for the day. I'd never ridden a board. A couple of them had, and they coached me. You know, hey, here's the board. Here's how you get in. To the wave, and
So you're 15. You're
Mm.
15 though, right?
15. Yeah.
So you got a little bit of skill from an athletic standpoint, coordination, some, a little bit.
We skateboard a lot. in
Okay,
the
so
neighborhood.
you're already skateboarding. That helps. Yeah.
Yeah, and but never had surfed a wave until that day, and this is when Anastasia and Blowhole were
No, I know.
fantastic.
Firing. I'll have some
And
stories
middles,
about that.
and
Yeah,
remember all that.
We'll add some of those stories, and hopefully I can find pictures and things that will support our conversations when I throw this up online, because surfing isn't. I'm worried that we're going to be all gawky and like fired up about our stories, and someone's going to be hearing this and going, "What are those guys so excited about? Why are they talking why are they talking like 14-year-olds again?"
Those were good times,
Yeah.
and I remember the first wave, that I caught. And I think I made it.
You really rode a wave. You remember the wave you rode?
Oh, I remember the first wave. Yeah, and
So wait a second, Tim.
Yeah.
Can't get away with this, because I'm gonna.
good.
When I say ride a wave, not whitewater, riding the face of the wave.
Yeah.
You remember riding the face of the wave?
Yeah, because
Ooh, way to go! I got the same story.
it was funny, in my case, because I tried to ride a wave and got caught in the white water, fell off, whatever, and then the guy one of the guys who had taken me, he explained. He said, "Look," he said, "it's easier if you get out on the front of the wave. It's scarier." Especially when you're starting out, you don't understand the dynamics. You're thinking, in the white water, I can just hang on. It's going to power me. I don't have to power myself. But explain, he goes, if you get out into the smooth water, he said, that's where you want to be. He goes, it's a little bit scary. He goes, but just trust it. Just drop in.
Oh, wow.
Just drop in, and you'll see. And so
That happened, huh? You got that.
I did that, and it was scary.
How big were the waves? What do you think?
What's that?
Size? How big?
Oh, it was probably 3 or 4 foot. It was a good day. It was a fun day, and dropped in on that wave, and it was so fun. But that was a big hurdle, getting into the smooth part of the wave, But it was fun. Yes. So tell me about your first wave. Obviously, it made a big impression on you.
Huge. So again, 13-year-old boy. Not a whole lot of things that I do well at the time from a sports standpoint. I'm generally, I'm not a coordinated person. People, your face, that was a good one. No, it was like everything for me was harder than I always imagined most kids, most people. Maybe it was just my own self-perceptions, and not that I was super confident, right? But when I watch someone skateboard or when I watch someone surf, if I was watching them, I'm like, they are so good. Why can't I do this thing? So, So we're out beyond the shore break, or where, you got mid, if it's 3 to 4 foot, it's breaking beyond the shore break. And then, so you got those waves to ride, which you rode one of those waves.
Yeah.
Me, I got the whitewater of that wave. So the whitewater, that's all we could figure out to do, because I didn't have to stand up on a wave yet. But I caught the whitewater, remember it pushing me, and I stand up, and I'm just trying to make my way towards the face. And so I'm getting pushed in, and the thing starts to reform.
Yeah.
That's what it did, dude. It started.
That's another way to do it.
Yes, it reformed, and I'm riding, going left, and boom, I'm riding this, and face is in front of me now. It's just a face, and I'm like, I'm riding a wave, and it was such a cool feeling. It was like, this is magical. I am going to do this again and again and again. So that was my first wave. And it was like yesterday that I wrote it. And man, isn't it special?
It is.
You catch a wave and ride for a while.
I remember, on that first day when I was learning, we got there early, went straight from the bus stop to go surf. And it was a good swell. And later that day, all these other people started showing up at the beach. So I just learned how, and the waves were good. It was good swell. And I now I'm, okay, figured out how to ride a wave, not good.
But you have the
anything.
stink bug stance, don't you?
What's that?
Stink bug. You're riding stink bug.
I'm sure. Yeah, I probably still have a little bit of that. But
We'll have a picture up of what stink bug looks like.
I'm sure I was doing all the wrong things, probably cutting people off, probably kooking basically, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And and there were so many people and it was intimidating, but the waves were so fun. It's like I'm going for this wave, and I was dropping in on some good sized waves, and
nice.
the day was so fun. And just from then on, I got to get my own board.
Yeah,
and I got to start going. And then it was a challenge to see, who I knew who could drive to the beach.
So here we go. We're going to put some dates on this because I do have a feeling this separates us some. You're surfing at 15 years old. What was the year?
79, maybe 80.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah. So I'm surfing at 13 years old or 14 in 75-ish. 74. Yeah, 74, 75. And so we're not too far apart when we're starting to surf. Yeah. So that's the 70s was, by the way, really a cool time to learn to surf.
It was fun.
We will not go way too deep into the conversation about the 70s. Yeah. But if you were surfing in the 70s, you were in a special place.
Movies, magazines,
all of it.
The formation of pro surfing, the introduction of the thruster, all that.
Yeah, in fact, what was happening for me is I went ahead and, Boo, I mentioned Boo. I can't think of his last name. I always just called him Boo anyways. But Boo and I, we didn't stay surfing together because he kind of fell out of it and I kept surfing.
Yeah.
So I asked you, did you surf by yourself at all and before the show? And yes, you did. And I did too. Crazy enough, this man at 15 that's my sport. I had friends that I knew surfed, but I didn't have to surf with them.
Yeah,
I was like,
been the same way. When I was younger, it was more friend based, and I went with groups and stuff more than I surfed alone. But as I got older, and some friends peeled away, and I was still going a lot and lived close to the beach at that point, I'd go by myself all the time. And now I'd say 90% of my time is spent surfing alone.
Yeah. So let's do this then. Let's talk about the spirit of the sport and what I feel like happened to me as a kid when I began surfing. Because I often wonder if I hadn't found surfing, again, there's a lot of other,
that's a good question.
Yeah, there's a lot of other socioeconomic, like where did you, we luckily ended up in Florida. I luckily ended up close to the ocean and I luckily found this sport, right? But it does have me thinking, I know it dramatically changed my life. Like who I am, what I'm about, what I pay attention to, what matters to me. It's everything, dude. And the reason I think it's everything is because I had to kind of discover it on my own. It wasn't something that someone said, hey, you got to go do this, or hey, you should. It was a sport you could do by yourself, right? Yeah. So for me, with all the dysfunction in the family and the craziness and anything that was going on in my life with school, with people, with, just my own personal well-being, like just my own questions about growing up. I could get on a bike or skateboard with surfboard underarm at 15 and go three quarters of a mile down the road to the pier and go in the water. And once I had learned how to catch a wave, then it was a matter of paddle out, I didn't duck dive. We turtle rolled back in the day. We didn't know anything about duck diving back then. But getting out into the ocean for a wave didn't take long in my head and heart to just connect with the higher power, connect with the ocean, connect with everything good
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
was, even if it was a stormy day, it just felt like I was in
Man.
this environment that was just good.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So did you get kind of that same thing
Oh,
going?
oh, yeah, yeah, and love
Oh, yeah.
love the ocean and
Yeah.
just the sunrises, the sunsets, whether it
Creatures?
was warm or
Sea-
cold.
sea
Yeah, the
creatures.
sea life.
Well, how about those dolphins when they swim, you know, when
Oh
they
my gosh! Yeah,
people-
I've had some amazing experiences with the dolphins
Yeah,
out there,
yeah.
big ones, doing all kind of crazy stuff, especially on good swells. That's when they appear to show up.
I can tell you exactly. It's not just a good swell, but it's a offshore wind good swell.
Yeah.
It really is. I think that
because the days that I think when I've had these experiences, they were
really groomed up surfaces,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
for whatever reason, those creatures know, oh my gosh, there's waves to play in. It's actually smooth
and
faces.
that's what they do.
They do. It's smooth faces, groomed by offshore winds, and plenty of swell. And you'll see them gather along 4 at a time, families, whatever, and they're doing this thing. And you can be in the ocean with them, just like, oh, there's 4 of them, and you watch them, and they'll go from. I've watched them take off on a swell and travel 200 yards, 300 yards with it. They'll be to the south of you, you know, 150 yards where you can see them kind of, they've been flock playing over there, 30, 50 yards away. And then they catch one of the little swells and they go riding it in like a surfer. And you watch them finish up the wave like, you know, they've ridden 200 yards. Here you go. I've got tons of questions for you, Tim. Young man surfing. Are you watching movies? Are you going to movies, surf movies with friends? What's the experience like? For you?
Yeah. I love, back then surf movies, a long time ago, would come out in the
Reels.
theaters, or they'd show them, tour them around and
16 millimeter films.
What's that? Yeah,
6
that's right.
16.
Yeah. And, so like the Jack's Beach Flag Pavilion would occasionally host films. And, there were other spots.
Jack's Beach Women's Club did it.
Yeah, did
Jack's
it
Beach.
too.
Yep.
And and then, some of the films back in those days, like Blazing Boards, Beyond Blazing Boards, Storm Riders. I don't know if you saw Jack McCoy passed away this past week, and he was like a legendary filmmaker who always had really good soundtracks with his films, and they all did. And that was another big draw to me. I'm a music nut.
You ready for this one?
What's that?
Ready for this one? 1975, I believe it was.
Yeah.
75. I got to watch Endless Summer in St. Augustine at the Pavilion band shell at the Bridge Alliance, at the end of the Bridge Alliance. They had a band shell there. You remember that? You probably don't.
No,
there was a small little band shell thing at the end of the Bridge Alliance in St. Augustine, Florida, and it was either 74 or 75. I was a grom.
Yeah,
I was barely, and I think I even must have gone with my mom. I think I convinced her to take me. One of the all-time probably best surf documentaries ever done. And to this day, it still holds up.
Yeah, no, it's still good.
It still holds up, and it's like, but it cracks me up. The best part of that movie now is when they go to Tahiti.
Yeah, I can't remember what happened to Tahiti.
Well, here's what they did. Yeah. They traveled to Tahiti to catch the waves, and there's there's really not that good of waves in Tahiti. We found this place. They found 2 spots in Tahiti right near the shore. One was backwashy, and they were riding it kind of goofy, just having fun. No. They had no clue chopes and this outer reef break even existed. I think they might have looked out to it and said, well, that's impossible. We're not supposed to be out there. But they literally went to Tahiti and never even
missed it. That's funny. You think about how many different spots there are around the world, and there's just so many. Probably some still out there to be discovered. Yeah. But I know different people who've traveled a lot and just gone every different kind of place. And one of those guys told me. He said Tahiti. I asked him, where's the best place you've ever experienced? Yeah. And he said Tahiti is definitely the biggest, most powerful, best, most fun, and best people, he said.
That was me too. traveled there in 2005.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's right. And you went to Chopes, right? You
Yes,
got
I
to
did
surf it.
on my birthday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
How was that?
Oh, I'm not going to do this yet. We'll get there. I'm going to tell that
Okay.
story. But I want to keep talking about us kids.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's so much about being a boy learning to surf.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle,
Yeah.
right?
So-
it's not just a sport. And a lot of people get into the, is it a sport?
Yeah.
Is it an activity?
Yeah.
Is it a lifestyle? And it's all those.
Right. And what else has happened as an older man, looking back on the younger man, and knowing that there are times in my life where even just to you saying a couple weeks ago, when you went out for the first time in a while and it was not easy. It wasn't fun. It's, the things that hurt in your body and don't work the way you want them to work. It's all that stuff. But even that for me just kind of describes a season. Not like, well, I've got to stop. Yeah, because and I've seen this happen with me many times throughout my life where I'll have a season where I'm not surfing that much. Don't get a chance to surf that much. But then I get back into the sport again. I never let it go, get back into it. It only takes a couple times for you to remember, oh, this is why I love this sport so much. Yeah. Even if it's tiny and small. I take my grandsons out, let's say, right? And it's junk waves, but you say, hey, K-Paul's going to take a board and ride a wave or two. And my gosh, it just takes one or two waves. And you're just going, well, of course, this is why I do this sport. I just love riding a wave.
Yeah. And I have never stepped away from it for any period of time until this past year.
Right.
And and then all of a sudden, 15-month gap, no surfing. And that stunk. But
it's not easy.
No.
But it's in there.
Oh yeah.
You can't. It's just never going to leave there.
I'll get back into it, and one way or another, whether the short board or mid length or longboard, whatever got to do. I'm definitely not stopping anytime soon.
No. So what ended up next happening, Tim, is I did leave the ocean, went to Texas to go study.
There are some waves down in Texas.
Oh yeah. You know what?
Fort Worth area, and
Port Aransas.
Yeah.
Port Aransas.
Yeah.
I did a spring break while I was out in Texas, had a bicycle that was my 12-speed. It was a 12-speed bike transportation to get around San Antonio. And this is a 19-year-old kid that has not seen the ocean because I'm going to school out there. I have not seen the ocean, done anything surfing for months. And I am desperate. I am dying, essentially. And for a spring break, I told my dad, told my mom, told the whole family, I am heading to Port Aransas on this bike. Don't have to take me, don't have to drive me, don't need a bus, don't need to. I rode a bike 180 miles from San Antonio to Port Aransas, and I surfed.
Yeah,
I did. It was crazy.
Do what you got to do.
It sounds stupid. It was a bike ride I wanted to do. I wanted to see if I had it in me, which was 2 days on a bike, 90 miles a day, brother.
Yeah.
Barely any food.
Dang.
I know. And this is my brain. I'm a nut. And then I didn't even have a board, but I just knew when I got to the coast, there'd be someone that had a board, some way I could get a surfboard and surf waves. And so I get to Port Aransas, and sure enough, run into a couple, a young man and woman that have a little camper thing, and they see me come up on a bike. I park, I'm looking at the waves, asking about, hey, where's the right place? The guy's real cool. He's got a board. He's like, you want to use my board? And I'm like, I love that. And so I ended up surfing for 2 hours.
How was it?
It was great, choppy, rideable. Came in and had dinner with these folks. They put me up in their little camper.
That's cool.
It was great.
I
turned around the next morning, got back on the bike. It's one day.
Yeah.
It was so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just to surf.
When you gotta surf, you'll do anything. I did the same thing.
I want to hear your crazy story. What's the craziest surf story? Like getting to the ocean and doing something.
Gosh, crazy surf stories.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a bunch of them. Had a lot of them traveling. There was, I remember the first time Gretchen and I went on a surf trip, when we were first married, and I was determined then maybe stop the buddy trips and start the trips with her. And so I took her to a place, Eleuthera, one of the outer islands in the Bahamas. It's got a place there called Surfers Beach with a little lean-to on the beach, nice break. And anyway, we went there, and a low pressure system formed while we were there, directly over the top of that island. And it was just on the threshold of becoming a hurricane, but not quite. And oh my gosh, the thing spun around for a day or two, and we went to bed one night, and boy, the furniture's blowing all over the place on the patio. We were just hanging on to each other inside this little place. I got up in the morning, and this place was just, it was rumbling. The ground was rumbling. And I got out, and there was a little courtyard in the hotel that I woke up in, and there was a little girl whose father ran the place. And she came out on one side of that place, and I came out on the other, and we're both like listening to this rumbling, the island's rumbling. And we just look at each other like, what is that? Yeah. And went to the beach that day, and it was gigantic. And there was actually a guy that was supposed to be taking us to the airport.
So the waves were the waves were rocking.
Oh, like I can't even tell you. And I will show you. I'll dig up a picture.
Better dig up a picture.
The waves were breaking over the power poles, and there was a guy who had been taxiing us around, and he was supposed to be driving us to the airport there that day. And he pulled up in the morning, and when I was standing outside, he's like, oh man, he said, the waves be raging, and that's what they were calling it. He said the waves were raging, and he said, you ain't going home today. And I was like, what are you talking? He goes, come with me. He goes, you got to see. And so I jumped in his taxi, and we go driving down the island. And it's a long, skinny 100-mile island, and there's a place where the Atlantic and the Caribbean meet in a bridge, and they call it the Glass Bridge, I think. Yeah. When we pulled up to that place, there waves were literally breaking over the power poles. There was these explosions. There was a truck that was stopped in the middle of this place. It was sideways, and there was a guy trying to time the sets to cross this place.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And he, big giant thing, it came and it landed on him, and it nearly pushed him down into the water. We helped the guy get up, and he appeared to either be drunk or dazed. But I left the scene because I wanted to go grab my camera. Yeah. And so we went back, and I was telling Gretchen, you just won't believe what's out there. You got to come see this. And so she says, like, all right, let me get ready. And so, she starts getting ready, and I go and go have breakfast at this hotel bar. And sitting in there and just eating, having coffee, and sitting at the bar and stuff. And after, I don't know, an hour or whatever, this guy's sitting there, and they're talking about this situation. And they said, well, so-and-so got swept into the ocean. He was at the bridge, and he's trying to get across. No. And I told him, I said, I was there this morning. I saw him. I helped him up. Yeah. He's okay. He's fine. Yeah. And they said, no. He tried to do it again, and he went in. Yeah. He goes, and then his son was out there at the time, and his son almost went in. But that guy passed away. And but that's just one travel, and there's been tons of things.
Well, that's and I'm going through my head right now all of the stuff. Old men like us, brother. If we've been surfing, we've traveled, and you and I sound like we both travel. I've got. Well, back it up. So after college, I told you that crazy story, me going to Port Aransas and doing that surf thing. That's how big a deal surfing was in my head.
Yeah.
Right. I got back from Texas. I stopped the Texas thing and going to school there because I was dying. I literally, my spirit, soul, I was a 129-pound man when I came back to St. Augustine, Florida. I was so skinny. I was so just out of my, like a fish out of water. I really was that guy that came back and people looking at me like, are you okay? And I was not okay.
Yeah.
And so got back into school, got married, all of that stuff, but started surfing again. And healing my body, healing my head, healing myself, because honestly, the sport meant so much to me as a kid.
Yeah, I can never imagine moving to a landlocked place.
Right.
Ever. I
right.
can't.
I tried it. I did it. I think I persevered. You know, it was one of those things that I feel like even today, it meant a lot to me because it strengthened me. It brought kind of a self-awareness. It brought a courage. It brought, you know, even the misery that I experienced was important. You know, I was like, okay, I had to have that made me grow up. You know, it was like, you know, you're not going to have this for a year and a half. And I grew up. So when I got back, finishing school and all that, brother, surfing was it. I'm going to do this. That's one of the reasons I was so passionate about the magazine. You know, I published South Swell magazine when I was 27 years old.
Let's talk about that. That was a cool mag.
It was.
And that was when the East Coast wouldn't get any coverage from the major surf mags. It was all California, all Hawaii. And that was it.
Yeah. And I saw that as a kid. When I was a boy, we'd come up to Jacksonville and go to the surf movies from St. Augustine, travel to Jack's Beach, go to a surf movie, and I'd go back. I was reading the California skate magazines. I was reading the California magazines. I was seeing all the California stuff and very aware that that's where it's hip and happening, California. And then by young adulthood, man, essentially, and getting back into the sport and realizing, man, there is this thing going on where the East Coast is somewhat a stepchild to the West Coast. They don't
totally.
They don't care about us. They don't think we've got any waves, which we
totally dismiss Floridians.
And that's me, of course, stubbornly. I was like, that's not cool at all. We are just as deserving. We have just as many talented surfers. And I purposely started
like that.
No, I purposely started paying attention. And the 23, 4, 5-year-old man, because I finished school when I was 25, but that guy's surfing now, finishing school, working at William Cook Advertising. I'm doing all of this, and I'm getting after it, right? I mean, I make sure surfing's a part of my life. I make sure, my school is going to be like, I'm going to get this thing done. I've got a purpose and attitude now about who I am, what I want to do, what I believe in, and surfing was this boom right in the heart and center of it. And that's honestly, that's the spirit of that magazine. It was like, I'm going to do this, even though I probably way out of my league, but I love writing. I love art. I love the sport. And there is a big hole here on the East Coast for that.
I just remember always thinking, because you wanted to see what I can, I want to see real waves, real Florida waves or real East Coast waves.
Right.
And, instead of every wave being a perfect 10-foot, Hawaiian, you wanted to see the stuff that you were writing, and that's what was so great about it.
Thank you. And I think the other thing that was really cool about it, reading all that, because there were several magazines that came before me. Wave Rider was one of them. I read Wave Rider. U.S. Surf was another one. I read U.S. Surf. And there were some local magazines, and Mitch Kaufman was involved in one of them. And, I saw all of that stuff, and it was also just a respect. Like a real honest respect for the sport and the people that are here. So it's not just like, I just believed at the time there was this disrespect. So I launched Swell in 87. We published for 3 years, and it was a great magazine, and we'll show some pictures and stuff like that. But we traveled around. Margaret and I traveled with that magazine to launch it to every city on the East Coast, every little beach community on the East Coast. We took it around, got it, the very first issue, in front of as many shops as we could get in front of, talked to as many surfers and shop owners as we could. And within, I'd say, a month, we had grabbed up at least 150 shops.
So you weren't using, today they have distribution service and stuff. You were your own.
We did end up getting, for newsstands. We hired actually a full-fledged out of New York. Cable News handled our distribution to the newsstand. So the first work was getting the magazine, publishing in and of itself, the writing, the photography, the entire network of people you're going to need to have a magazine that's got some quality and some substance. It took 3 issues. It was like 3 issues. And I know we're going through this really fast, but by the time the 3rd one hit, I would tell you the Tom Dugans of the world, the Dick Meserauls, the Kevin Welshes, all the guys that were respected on the East Coast that were already doing the work. Yeah. They were part of the magazine. They had finally, it was like, who's this guy? What's he doing? I'm publishing, sort of best I can, content that looks broad, looks pretty, comprehensive, but I'm doing my best with that first 2 issues just to, manage with my small network of people. I didn't have all this we started with nothing, 0. Literally, no one knew who I was. It was crazy.
So basically, would these people submit content to you, or would you go get it yourself? Or
well, that was the whole point of that run. Believe it or not, I at least did that thing smart. I spent a solid month traveling in like a rep, taking a sample of what was going to be the magazine to every one of these local spots, and meeting who. This is shop owner A, B, C, D. I met them all. And then who their writers are, who their photographers are, who's in that community. Here's the card, here's the card, here's the card. I'm like literally grabbing up as many people in the industry as I can that first issue.
You're saying send me your stuff.
Send. Yeah, we're going to do this. Quarterly was what the idea was, and then it went to bi-monthly. And then it was newsstands and bi-monthly. And again, 13 issues, and that was it. That was all I published, and I had to get out. It was that's a whole other thing, but it was built around an organic kind of event where travel, meet everyone in the that I could in the industry, surfers and surf shop owners, and then they committed to content. Like we got photographers all the way from New Jersey down to Miami.
I remember it was a quality publication,
but it happened fast.
Made me proud as an East Coaster to see it.
And there were a lot of people that were stoked and saw it as great timing, and we did a good job for everything that was against us. And but that spirit that was me as a kid, that was saying, hey, this sport is just way too precious. It's way too important to have it not, reflected in that same level of the storytelling that the California publications were doing and everyone else all around the world. You and I were living that in the 70s and 80s. If you were looking at the California magazine, you were seeing the Aussie, the South Africans, the Aussies, the Hawaiians, and every one of these spaces and places had its own vibe and culture, and it was really strong. Yeah. And then the East Coast was like, at least years and years ago, it was like until Kelly. Yeah. And once Kelly and the Hopgoods and you should start naming them. We had so many great West Lanes, Todd Hollands, we had all these kids, the Klugels, the Rudolphs, they were all coming alive at that time and really showing themselves. And we got to put them in a magazine, and it became, holy shit, these guys, Kelly especially, who became the greatest surfer ever, the GOAT, is from, Cocoa Beach.
And Lisa Anderson.
Oh, yeah. We had them in spades, but no one, paid attention until, I won't say South Swell did any more than just tell one part of the story as the story was unfolding.
Yeah.
But it was cool to do that and be, part of the push, let's say.
So do you ever want to jump back into it?
Well, I wish magazines were still, viable. Yeah. It's a beautiful.
Surfers trying to make a comeback.
Yeah, Surfer Journal. The journal or the magazine?
No,
the magazine.
Yeah, they're trying to make a comeback in print. I don't know if they'll succeed. But
I think definitely if it's both print and social or online digital, because you need them to communicate properly.
Sure.
Yeah, the kids don't get it. And the other thing that was really interesting about running the magazine and doing 3 years of that is I never went anywhere, Tim. I sent everyone to the big stories and do all the public, I was always working. And I would be like, so you're going to Paris? I mean, we're sending you to Spain? We're sending you to Brazil. I'm sending guys all over the world, and it's on South Swell's dime or an agreement we have with someone that might be a travel agent, and they're like, "Hey, we'll do this. You give us the story and put our name in there, and then we'll get all these guys a hotel room and the airfare and all that." So we had multiple arrangements where guys were traveling and getting to see and come back with insane stories. And then there's Kurtis. He's like always working, and I never went anywhere. I was like, this isn't fair. But that was also really cool because everything that's in that magazine was built out of an audience that loved what we were doing, paying for ads in the publication. Obviously our subscriptions were going up. We had, by the time we stopped publishing, we had the magazine in every country that was viable. Like we had it in Europe. Yeah, we had the magazine in Europe. We had it in South America. We had it in, obviously.
That's great.
Yeah, we had it in California. My sister, who lived in Hawaii, was like, "Oh, I'm here on the grocery store." Yeah. And she's picking up South Swell in the grocery store out in Hawaii.
Nice.
Yeah, we had it everywhere. It was awesome.
That's cool.
It felt really cool for a short while.
Good memories.
Yeah. So that's Swell. And then the other thing that I was going to ask you about is with surfing and travel. What is your favorite travel spot? Where was?
Favorite? I guess got to be Costa Rica, just for the consistency and. How
many times did you go?
I've probably been, I don't know, three times, maybe four.
What was the earliest time you went?
What's that?
The earliest time you went to Costa Rica, you remember?
It was mid-90s sometime, probably. And it was nice. Caught great waves there, and there's such a mix of waves.
Mid-90s, was transportation still kind of tough?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We had an issue with the rental car company and stuff.
Well, you have rain too. I mean, the rain in Costa Rica is absurd.
Yeah. No, and I had some friends get into a really bad accident over there. 4 people.
You do not want to get in an accident.
No. Yeah.
I had a friend who lost his wife.
Yeah.
In Costa Rica in an accident. It was a terrible accident. He was severely injured. She was severely injured. She passed later when they got her to the States. She internal bleeding and everything else. You can't afford to get into trouble down there. You can't have an accident. You can't.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be going around those mountain curves and these giant trucks are, coming. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, that was a fun place. And I always used to try.
What's your best wave there?
The best wave? I think probably Playa Negra.
Okay.
Big tubing, powerful wave. I mean, it's really fun. And then from there, there's not too far down the beach, there's a place called Avellanas.
Yep.
And down the beach from that is a place called Little Hawaii at a river mouth, which is really fun. It gets big, but it's soft. It's like a big bowl and not as crowded as like Avellanas and stuff. So those are my favorite
best barrel.
waves.
Where?
My best barrel? My best barrels would probably come here in Florida.
You don't have one you remember?
Surfing other places. Or you talking about here?
Anywhere. I want the best barrel.
Yeah, I would say here. There's been a couple of times on storm waves, and it probably one where everybody saw it.
I love that.
And then you come out and people are hooting, or they come up to you later and say, "Oh, you were right here." And
I love that.
And so there's been a couple of those times where it was really fun, and. I'd say here in
What's your scariest time in the ocean?
What's that?
Scariest time in the ocean. What do you have an event that happened where you were just like, holy cow, I barely survived?
It was after a long day of surfing. I was surfing at a place called Perkins, which is north of RC's, and it was another big wave spot that had big boulders underneath the water, and it held the swell really good. Big boils out
near
there.
RC's?
What's that?
Is it near RC's? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's I'd say probably 3/4 of a mile up the road from RC's. The Perkins is no longer there. It's another restaurant now, but they had a public access there where you could go if you were in time for the parking. And so I've been surfing there all day. It was great. And the waves were just phenomenal. And I was having so much fun, but also getting worn out. And yeah, it was probably 6 in the afternoon or so. And I was just really worn out, and a big set came through, and I caught it. I fell down. It broke my leash. So that board's gone. And it was such a big swell, and I'm over these rocks, and they're like sucking me down.
Oh, shit.
And I didn't really have the energy to kind of fight anymore. And I thought I was going to drown, and I went to go raise my hand, and all these thoughts were going through my head, and I'm thinking, I just somehow found the strength to paddle in, swim in, and when I got to the beach, when I came up on the beach, it was like the classic thing where you've seen somebody, they come in crawling on their knees and kiss the sand, and that's what I did, and I was happy to be alive.
We underappreciate the waterman mentality, the space you get into when you're out there in the ocean and everything seems natural. It's all instinctual. You know, we take it for granted, but as a surfer and you paddle out and you're like looking for sets and you're looking at the horizon and you're understanding the beach and you immediately know what the drift feels like and how quick it's going. You know everything about that ocean because you've done it so many times. You almost do it just, it's a natural instinctual thing that happens eventually.
And sometimes, if you take a beginner out and you put them in waves that are too big, and they're just, even if you're trying to help them and stuff, and they're intimidated, by that stuff, and the fear kicks in on top of, the things that you're talking about, and it can definitely be a terrible experience for someone.
When you watch the World Surf League, right, and you see
I'm a fan of competitive surfing.
When you see the contest going on in all parts of the world, these guys are traveling. They're going from one spot to the next spot to the next spot. Everything's different. The ocean's different. The beach, the bottoms, it's always different, right? And most anyone that has no clue would watch it. Now that surfing's in the Olympics, I mean, most of the world doesn't understand. If you've never surfed or never followed it, they're like looking at like one wave system. One wave is like every other wave, right? And you're like, oh no, it's so different. And you get to see it. At least this is what I think. When you're watching as someone that's experienced, the pros do it, right? And you're seeing those drone shots, and the drones are flying over, and you're seeing the lineup, right? And the ocean is just clear enough; it's almost transparent, right? So you see the bottom. Right. And so you get to see the bottom of the ocean, the reef formations, you get to see the rocks or whatever it is. And then you see how the waves come in, and they're talking like 3 different swell directions. And these guys are out there in it. Right. And you're watching them paddle around in it, getting to the lineup, getting to where they're supposed to be, understanding what's happening based on the 3 different swells that are coming in. It's just the most extraordinary thing to watch.
I mean, when you see somebody live that's good, that's really good, it's a treat to watch.
It's advanced so much in the 50 years that I've been at it and watched it. It's like I go out and I go out and ride a wave like I go out for my runs nowadays. It's like, my head and heart is just going to need a little bit of ocean. My head and heart just needs a little bit of a run. I don't care that I'm not flying through the air or doing some crazy stunts. It's just being in the element is so special. It's so special, and I'm so grateful that we have a chance to do this. And we probably should have a few more stories and podcasts.
Oh my gosh,
we need to bring surfers in here and have them discuss it. But
definitely,
I'm betting there's enough in what we've said related to this surfer spirit that if someone was trying to hear this and maybe understand it, and if certainly the images that we post up along with this, if it's enough to get someone excited and they're like, oh, dude, I'm kind of feeling like, I need something. And if you live on the coast and you're not trying to surf, give it a go. Why not? I mean, some people are like in their 40s and 50s. They're like, dude, I've thought about it. And I'm like, Go.
And you know what you say there, and you know one other point that I wanted to make is, you know, we live on a coast, and there's only, you know, so much of that in the United States. Okay, yeah, you know, it goes all the way around from California, you know, Texas on around, Florida, you know, North Carolina, Jersey. All those places offer surf, but you know, you got the rest of the country is landlocked.
Yeah.
They don't have the opportunity. If you're living here in Florida and you're just, you know, you're within an hour of the coast from anywhere, you know, boy, something you
give it a try, because it doesn't
really want to take advantage of.
Some people will tell me it's because of the ocean and sharks and the mystery of what's underneath the water, what you can't see. And you got to get that out of your head, because that's such a small infant. I mean,
30 years of surfing, I haven't been bitten.
I've seen them, and I've never been bitten. I've been chased. I've been, you know, I mean, literally had some moments, but you know, and I wish they would have never said it's a shark attack. And I think they kind of made that into something bigger, you know, shark attacks, and all the jaw stuff.
Just watch footage from New Smyrna Beach. I mean, those guys are surfing
A
over,
lot,
under, all around
sharks
all day
everywhere.
long.
All day
And
long.
yes, there's, you know, whatever it is, you know, a handful of bites a year there.
Yeah.
But
It's rare that you're going to find yourself with an arm off, or like Bethany, and you know, it's too much to pass up a great sport because you're scared of what's in the ocean. Mm-hmm. It's one of the easiest things to jump into. Mm-hmm. It really is. Mm-hmm. And surf camps are fun, and people that surf are cool generally.
Pretty mellow compared to what you hear about or read about sometimes in California or other places.
And by the way, if you're a woman that is hearing this, we've got 12 of you probably watching right now. But the women are killing it.
They are.
It's just so much fun.
The professional girls, good Lord.
Dude, even here in Jack's Beach, it's just an amazing thing to see. I've been like so encouraged by seeing the talent, seeing the desire, the same passion, and really the brotherhood, sisterhood out there is about as true as it gets anywhere.
The girls rip.
Well, but we rip with them. You know, we're like literally sharing an ocean together in a sport that is so special. And the respect for the ocean, I think, is what lifts everyone up, above each other and everything else. It's like, oh, you're just in that. You are in fellowship within the ocean. You know, that ocean comes first. It's
it's special spiritual connection.
And by grace you get to do it. So I'm grateful, and I think that's close to wrapping this up. What do you think?
Yeah.
Well, the surfer spirit, that was fun. We're going to get this thing edited down so it's not an hour and a half. I don't know how long we talked, but we really appreciate you guys watching. This has been Not Strong, Empowering the Human Spirit. My name is Kurtis.
And I'm Tim.
And until next week, you guys take care. Right over here.